A big thank you to Capcom for the preview key. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster brings us back to the zombie-infested shopping mall of Willamette, with freelance journalist Frank West heading into his own version of Dawn of the Dead for his next big scoop, this time with some quality of life upgrades and graphical enhancements, and appearing almost 8 years after its last installment, Dead Rising 4. Capcom kindly gave me access to a preview so I can share my first impressions. And just to clarify, it covers the in-game time window for day 1 up until around case 3 on day 2 for the 72-hour mode. The visuals in the Deluxe Remaster are more in line with the other RE Engine titles of recent years, opting for a more realistic approach to colour palettes and lighting, as well as added details both in character models and environments. I have a pretty strong love for the original visuals as someone who has a lot of nostalgia for that era, but I think the developers did a great job in adapting it to the style of modern Capcom titles. I personally really like how the characters look, and this new interpretation sometimes made things a little more camp or even a little more creepy. Adam McIntyre, for example, freaked me out a bit with his new and improved facial expressions. And for the first time in my life, I was actually unsettled by a clown. The user interface is also affected, going for a menu displaying Frank's model as you flick between whatever options and stats you're searching for, as opposed to the bright blue news channel design of the original. The map also gets an overhaul in the form of a leaflet you'd find in the building, which I found easier to use when trying to quickly locate specific types of facilities by their symbols. Plus, with the new visual style, I can see why they changed the UI to match and really can't fault it for its usability. On that subject, the health bar, level, and tasks stay on screen during gameplay by default, which might be distracting for some. And I really like that there's a function to hide those elements when simply exploring outside of combat. And also because I can get HUD-less footage, which is something I like to do a lot for my videos. Another useful feature is that you can now see the durability status through a small meter underneath the display picture of the weapon or breakable object you have in your inventory. It helps a whole lot more with anticipating its depletion before it inconveniently breaks on you just when you need it most. The controls also feel a lot more aligned with standard modern gameplay. Most notably, you can now move while aiming to shoot firearms. And there's also an autosave feature which I greatly appreciated while I experimented with dumb ideas. My main source of happiness though came from collecting survivors, kitting them out with all kinds of weapons, and rolling around with my small army of random civilians I've recruited. I took my leadership role quite seriously, finding snacks to keep my guests' health bars full while I took them on a tour of the zombie-filled Willamette Parkview Mall, and then eventually back to the safety of the security room. There isn't co-op like Dead Rising 2, but I found the sense of teamwork with NPCs a good enough replacement. Sure, you can go it alone and not have to tell your group to hide somewhere while you take out a boss or worry about their health. However, seeing these side characters and their reactions to a zombie outbreak at what is likely their local mall is a huge part of feeling at home here. Plus, they'll point out things in the environments that you might find useful.
Hey Frank, look at that! Looks like a cool photo op, no?
During your time fighting through the undead, you'll establish your favourite pathways and shortcuts. Whether that's from a survivor showing you events you can use, unlocking the underground tunnels and driving from one exit to another, or the tried and true method of stocking up on skateboards, there's always new routes to learn and unravel both through mandatory and optional progression. You also build upon this to form a routine of sorts, like how I would head to the northwestern part of the mall to stock up on firearms from one shop and gather consumables from the nearby grocery store, then sharing that stock if I had brought anyone along with me. After that, I would attempt any boss fights that may have cropped up on my to-do list, often without too much trouble. And finally, I'd leisurely scour the area for prestige point stickers and other survivors, as well as replenishing any resources I might be low on before heading back to the safe room to drop off anyone I had saved. There'll be times where trying to help people will mean having to face a deadly opponent first, so saving them doesn't always come risk-free. You could hide away from all of these optional moments and only address the main story events in the game, which are signified by case numbers. But that defeats the social side of tackling a mall of flesh-eating zombies. Doing that also wouldn't present you with enough varied opportunities for increasing your level and stats, and Otis will be sure to have your transceiver ringing off the hook with all those missed chances.
Somebody's barricaded a woman's clothing shop in Alfresco Plaza.
That being said, it is possible to move time forward when you want to, which is helpful when you might feel satisfied with any optional tasks or preparations, but the next main case is still quite some time away. Despite any real fear factor of the Dead Rising games being subdued by its comedic aspects, there is still some tension. This is portrayed through the in-game clock and events on a timer, though this isn't as debilitating as one might think, as I had plenty of time to quite freely explore between main cases. Anything missed can be attempted on a later playthrough, maybe with the challenge of rescuing all survivors. Hours absolutely flew by when I played the preview, and I was left feeling sad that I couldn't continue further than the time frame available. It was a massive reminder of how undeniably fun the formula of Dead Rising is, being given free reign of a shopping mall to conquer with your own habits, helping others and working together to survive. There are also a bunch of alternate costumes as DLC that you can change into from the closets. And I always love seeing what Frank would be wearing, then carry over into the cutscenes too. You can play out scenarios like what if Alika just wanted to be Tony Hawk, and engage in a mascot worker simulator, with Frank's voice muffled by a giant suffocating suit.
Hello?
Not only that, but I could see costumes would have matching music tracks that you could turn on too, which is a nice touch. I often made an effort to enter stores and acquire new outfits and accessories, which can now be selected in the closet in a section with the challenge rewards that's separate from the DLC options. This means you don't have to go all the way back to the specific location to put on your favourite dress or shoes. And having a menu for them all motivated me even more to explore every shop I'd come across. In addition to fresh fits, you can find books that offer certain stat boosts and abilities, like having weapons of a certain type have longer lasting durability and getting more points for taking pictures. Speaking of, there was one I found that allowed me to enter a slow motion mode when using my camera, which from what I understand isn't in the original game, and there's a lot of funny moments to be had with this feature alone. There are camera stores too, but apart from just being able to acquire more batteries, you can even pick up things like the ability to change depth of field and brightness, basically allowing the actual in-game camera mechanic to function more closely to a photo mode for nice shots, and not just a means to an end for prestige points. You'll have to keep an eye out for food and health items on the fly, but you can mix certain consumables to create concoctions that provide Frank with a temporary effect. My first test of course had to be combining 2 wine bottles to make Quickstep, which did not disappoint. There are others too, like Untouchable, which can stop zombies from being able to grab you, and also Spitfire, whereby you're granted the power of killer projectile saliva. The more prestige points you get, the more your level will grow, increasing your health bar and also allowing you to use different abilities that can help you to make your way through crowds of zombies with Frank's bare hands, whether that's charging straight into them or walking on top of them. Another satisfying approach to swarms of the undead is driving a car through them underground, which always feels good and can be a useful level boost. For the most part, even though time is limited, you have the freedom to choose what you do with it. In that way, it felt like a very laid-back experience, and when the preview ended, I was genuinely upset. It was honestly such a blast, and I'm going to be getting all the achievements and more when the full game is out. I think being okay with missing things on a first playthrough is a mindset you need to adopt, as it's an excuse to replay the game while carrying over your stats and really perfecting your time management and traversal throughout them all. There's plenty of experimentation you can do with playstyles, which just adds to the amount of time you can quite easily sink into it. Also, for whoever it may concern, there's a streaming mode where you can turn off any licensed background music that would normally play, so that's always appreciated from a creator standpoint. I know it's early days, but I'm hoping we eventually see more from the Dead Rising franchise after this remaster too. I was already looking forward to the full release, but this preview ended up making me a lot more excited for it, even if it's just so I can see how large I can grow my army. Thanks again to Capcom for the preview key, and thank you for watching. You're welcome to subscribe if you'd like to see my future videos, and I'll see you soon with another.